So for the person listening, how I ended up with kind of understanding that there might be this part that accommodated to my mom's, suffering was that as I've been changing, I am feeling bad at watching how my changes are hurting some people that that this part has really catered to.
Yeah.
And so it came out as I was talking to my therapist, like something in my childhood is what I said to her, has me thinking that I developed the thought pattern, I need to take care of everybody's suffering. I can't let those people suffer around me. So it started with a thought and a pain in me that I just couldn't take anymore. I was like, what? How can I be blossoming into this beautiful new version of me and have such a pit in my stomach because those around me are not loving the changes that they're seeing because they have to take care of themselves now. So you see how I got to that? I'm curious how the follower, people listening can take a suffering thought and link it to a part.
Yeah. Well, I think that any part of us that's out of harmony with self is a part.
Got it.
And so so the work isn't that we're going to live in self all the time. These parts are beautiful. They have very important roles. We don't want to stop the parts, right? Your part that's saved and served, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has healed so many people, Mindy.
Yeah.
And she's changed so many lives. And we don't want her to stop doing her beautiful work. We just want her to feel less extreme in how she does it.
Yeah.
And so these parts have very polarized roles, right? They're like, my controller part has written 10 books in 14 years. And she's served many souls. But we just want to help her not have to do that, write these next books in a controlling way, right? Just let her go off to a cabin for a few months and write the next one, right?
Oh my God, I keep saying that.
Right?
It's every author's dream.
Every author's dream. But, there's the Walden, there's the Thoreau in us. It's just like we want to have this experience. And
that's right.
But whatever that means, even if that's a week retreat to just go be in that journey. And so let's look at these parts of us, however we access them, and recognize that they've been working really hard to protect us. In the book I write, as the year that I wrote this book, I was also a fellow at a recovery center, a sober recovery center. And every month, every month I would go in. And so it was like a 28-day cycle or 21-day cycle. And every month I'd meet these people who had 1 day, 2 days, 3 days sober. And I would give these talks, and I was workshopping this method. And what I'd offer them was this idea that, first I'd say to them, how many of you in this room have experienced adversity or trauma in your childhood? And every hand would go up, right, including my own, because I'm a sober woman of 19 years. And then I'd say, well, that was really tough suffering. And they'd all say, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then I'd say, well, wouldn't it make sense that you would do whatever it took to put out the fire of that flame of fear and suffering? And everybody would kind of nod their heads like, well, yeah, I get that. And then I'd ask them, well, then wouldn't it be reasonable to see that this addiction has been trying to protect you?
Ooh.
And some people would be really resistant. Like they hated their addict part, their days sober. It was too much for them to contemplate. But a lot of people might be like, wow, okay. And then they might even experience this like glimmer of compassion. Holy shit, this part of me has been working so hard for so many years to protect me from this very scary experience from my childhood. I have a lot of compassion for that part of me that's been running the show. So now, of course, 19 years later, I look at my cocaine addict part with so much compassion and gratitude. Thank you for working so hard to keep that memory down. I wasn't ready to remember that, Yep. And so it's just a different approach to the way that we see ourselves. Right. And then there's another piece of this, which is that the people around you are changing, right? The subtitle of this book, it's like self-help. This is your chance to change your life. And this is your chance to change your life, and other people's lives will change because of it.
Yeah, or that should have been the subtitle.
That should be the subtitle. There's your subtitle. Because it's just, you change. Here's the good news, though. As you do this work, Mindy, more and more self is going to emerge, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to start being able to come to these relationships speaking for these parts of yourself, not as these parts of yourself. So you could go to your loved ones and say, I have a part of me that's been really trying to save everybody. And I've been going through this menopausal journey and I'm realizing, I don't have it in me anymore to do that. And I just want to speak for that because it might be uncomfortable for you, but I want to create a boundary with love that this part of me just can't do it anymore.
I love
instead
that.
of speaking as the part of like defending it or trying to make sure that everybody's safe while you're doing the boundary.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, just speak for it. And that's what self is, because self is clear. One of the clarity is a quality of self. So speaking for it with clarity.
And how many parts, I know this is probably unique for everybody, but how many parts do we have? And are they all protector? Do we have parts that are like,
we have tons of
good parts? Yeah, like how do you know what's a good part and a bad part?
We have many parts. There's no bad parts. Dick Schwartz wrote the book, No Bad Parts.
Okay.
It's a very important message. There's no bad parts. There's just parts that were forced into extreme roles.
Got it. Okay.
And so some of the parts that are extreme, some of the parts that are addicted, some of the parts that are protecting so much were very young and they were forced into these adult roles to have to take care of this little exiled child. And they've been extreme because they've been working so hard. So there's no bad parts. They're just extreme parts. And so these parts don't actually need to be forced or shut down. They need to be related to. They need to be connected to.
And named and called out and honored.
Honored. They need They need these steps. They need to be checked in with. They need curiosity. They need compassionate connection to have their needs met. They need to be seen. They need self.
So, it's so interesting. When I first learned about IFS, it reminded me of when I saw that movie, Beautiful Mind. Do you remember that movie about he was a schizophrenic? And it was a big movie at the time it came out. And I remember walking out of that movie and thinking, we're all schizophrenic. We all have.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
This guy was like shown to be this obscure human, but I was like, we all have these different voices in our head. We all have these different stories that we're working with. So as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about that. And then it makes me wonder, like, you've done a lot of work on yourself using IFS. Do you when you're in a stressful moment, does your brain go, oh, you're reacting because of this part? Like, do you call the parts out as you feel the suffering?
Yeah. Well, to answer both of those questions. So the first thing is, yes, Dick Schwartz is very clear. This is non-pathologizing. So he wouldn't even call it multiple personality disorder. He would just call it parts. Okay? Because we all have them, and some people have them in more extreme ways. And oftentimes those who have more extreme ways and might get the diagnosis of multiple personality disorder are the ones who've had the most extreme traumas such that their brain just fragmented.
Right.
That they just, the parts explosion. Okay?
Right.
So in the case of, so that's why I love that it is a non-pathologizing therapy.
Yeah.
And we all have these parts and we have lots of them. And how do you, so first there's lots of parts. There's no bad parts. Some parts are very childlike and already very youthful and calm and easy and confident. And they have a lot of access to self. And some parts have less access to self because they've been in these extreme roles. And so the ones that are extreme, it's our job it's not our job, it's our choice to check in with them and bring them back to self and connect them to self. So that's our choice.